Sometimes we wonder where all the magic has gone. We were once happy, but we wake up one day and wonder if we've disabled our ability to create magic in this lifetime. It seems like we no longer have faith in our abilities to create happiness, but instead we've somehow developed a lot of faith in the now moment because of what we see in our physical reality. We've become pessimistic and maybe apathetic, and we definitely feel stuck. We've become a prisoner of our life experience, and the magic and joy we once had seems to have evaporated out of our life. Well, today we're going to talk about breaking faith in the now physical reality and shifting to the perspective of an infinite intelligence, that higher consciousness within us who knows exactly how to make the magic and manifest the unmanifested. Hmm. This podcast is all about helping you with your spiritual growth so you can overcome obstacles and manifest your destiny to crystallize all good things, basically, to have success on life's journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. So let's get started. Hi there, and welcome. My name is Remy, like Do Re Mi. I'm a best-selling author and creator of the Get Unstuck Revolution. I help extraordinary women just like you dissolve the obstacles in your path so you can bring success to you. Now let's get started with today's video. Okay, let me jump off the screen here and make a switch over to my laptop. Today, we're talking about breaking faith in the now reality. We have an obstacle in our path or an experience that is less than ideal, and we can't seem to break free from it. Well, this is because we have too much faith in our present physical world. We've become stuck. We keep trying to change it, but we can't. It's already manifested into the now reality, and we hold it there with our thoughts as we think about how much we don't like it. So, why not just go create a new reality? That would get us out of our prison, right? But the question is exactly how do we do that? How do we create from the unseen reality so we can just move on to success? Well, if you'd like to see success in full abundance along life's journey, and if you're wanting to tap into a greater knowingness and align with the higher consciousness of your infinite self, instead of the lower ego thinking and negative thoughts that push success away, then this is for you. It's time to be unabashedly, unapologetically, happily untethered to ego thinking. It's time to align with the higher energies of our soul's path instead. Today's episode is for you if you wonder, when you think about faith, faith in what exactly? How to unlock your higher consciousness, that part of you that's connected to infinite intelligence, and how to find the portal to the things you want, but they haven't manifested yet. Yes, these episodes are about how to find your hidden power when you want to transform challenges into successes. I like to call it the audacity of alchemy. Because when we're feeling stuck, it's never the situation that has us stuck, it's our energy that's become stuck in anxiety, overwhelm, doubts, worries, frustrations, indecision, and even anger. And often this is because of a spiritual injury that we've experienced, some kind of hidden trauma. So it isn't the pain of our situation, it's the pain of not being connected into the natural energy of who we really are, of being connected to that magical part of us that's a creative vibrational being who can use positive energies to create what we want and bring it into physical manifestation. We can allow our manifestations to materialize and not get stuck in the negative vibrations that block them. These positive energies that we talk about so much are where we find the magic of alchemy, because our choice of frequency, our choice of those positive thoughts and emotions can change the course of our journey. So today we're talking about faith in the now moment. We tend to develop a lot of faith in the now moment because of what we see in our physical reality. We've become cynical, doubtful, and maybe confused about why we're stuck here and can't seem to break free. We are most definitely ready to change the course of our journey. What we need is to break faith because we have too much faith in the now reality and it becomes our prison. What we want is to shift our perspective to that of infinite intelligence, that higher consciousness within us who knows exactly how to create a new reality for us. But I've had a lot of people ask me, How exactly do I access this higher consciousness, this infinite intelligence? How do I get there? How do I unlock my creative abilities? Well, it seems like we've disabled our abilities to be creative in this regard. Oh, maybe we can write an article or paint a painting or create some music. I'm not talking about that creativity. I'm talking about creating a new reality. For those of us who are light workers, we may have been accused of magical thinking and maybe persecuted over lifetimes. We've tried to create a beautiful future in this lifetime and others, only to be told to get back to the real world. Mm, can you relate? How many people have tried to dampen your creativity or told you to join the real world or to get back to realism? You know, I am a fan of Dan Brown and I've read every one of his books. It's where I first became interested in the battle between science and spirituality, between the seen and the unseen. And as I began to research this concept a little more, I was surprised to bump into so many stories of people who have memories of being a witch, hogtied, and thrown into the nearest lake. And as you probably know from your own history lessons, well, this is not a winning scenario. If she's really a witch, she should be able to escape drowning, break the ties, and resurface from the waters, at which time she'll be burned at the stake anyway, because she's clearly a witch. And if she does drown, well, she wasn't a witch, but now she's dead. So, for those of us who have spent lifetimes as healers and light workers, this has brought a fate whose consequences have followed us into this lifetime and perhaps crippled us to a degree. We have very deep fears of using our powers, if you will, because we might be persecuted again. And for so many of you that I've talked to on webinars and at workshops, you've disabled your ability to create magic in this lifetime because you no longer have faith in your abilities to create, but have a lot of faith in the now moment where magic, let's face it, doesn't always happen. And this is because the now moment was created yesterday. The now moment is already in the physical world. And because we don't want to be hogtied and thrown into the nearest lake, we don't want to take any risks. We've become complacent, trying to find our happiness in the now moment rather than going back to create magic, which is really quite a natural state for us as light workers. So we have too much faith in the physical world reality, and it's become our prison. We keep trying to change it, but we can't. What we want is to shift our perspective to that of infinite intelligence, that higher consciousness within us who knows exactly how to create a new reality for us. But you may be wondering, how do we unlock this higher consciousness, this infinite intelligence? Well, I have some ideas. And so here comes the first insight. I'll put this up on the screen for you. And this is insight number one. Consciousness does not need our thoughts. We can't unlock higher levels of consciousness if we're always thinking, 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 because thinking can quickly turn into overthinking, and overthinking blocks our ability to go beyond negative thoughts. We tend to overthink and ruminate when our life feels out of balance with too many struggles, or we may have one struggle that's taken over our life. So, our first step here is to break from thinking so much. Consciousness does not need our thoughts. Higher consciousness doesn't need our thoughts either. And if we want to access higher levels of consciousness, we need to find a way to quieten our thoughts. And we do this by realizing, and here comes the next insight on how to unlock our higher consciousness. We do this by realizing we are not our thoughts. The beginning of freedom from negative thoughts is when we start watching the ego as if it's separate from us, because it is. Realizing that we are not our ego and we are not our thoughts creates a space where a higher level of consciousness can become activated. The simple idea that we can watch and observe the thoughts of ego is huge. When we watch objectively, we see just how much chaos the negative thinking of ego can cause. We begin to realize that there is a vast infinite intelligence beyond our ego thinking. And we also realize that what really matters, love and patience, compassion, creativity, joy, all these things can be found when we're outside of ego's grasp. When we become aware of a thought, We are witnessing it. We're detached from it. And that awareness, that part of us that can observe a thought, is our higher consciousness. Witnessing thoughts is different from thinking thoughts. So if we can become aware that we're having a thought, we can observe it. And by witnessing our thoughts, we can see which ones are positive and creating a positive experience for us, and which ones are in the negative frequency and creating a negative experience. These thoughts are simply trying to make sense of the world around us and help us survive, really. And the key word there is survival. Since our ego is trying to protect us, it wants to survive, but ego thinking is often counter survival. And this is why it's so important to always know our objective, what we're trying to create, and what we want to create as a life experience. This way, our ego can't take us down a dark rabbit hole. We are in charge of where we want life to take us next by creating and molding our thoughts in that positive direction. And sometimes it's easier to do this by writing or speaking our thoughts out loud. I prefer picking up a pen and just letting words and sentences flow without judgment as if I'm completely detached. And when my pen is finished, I can go back and look at what was written. And this helps me discern which thoughts are serving me and which ones need to be rewritten. And that's the part of me that's doing this without judgment. That part of me is my higher consciousness. That's the part of me that has a higher perspective and knows where my soul wants to go in life. Make sense? So we are not our thoughts. We want to detach from them and observe us, and observe our thoughts. The part that can observe our thoughts, that is our higher consciousness. All right. So here comes the next insight on how to unlock our higher consciousness. Let me put this on the screen for you. Here we go. This is insight number 3. Higher consciousness is in the gap. We've heard Deepak Chopra talk about those little gaps in our thinking. We have one thought, and then there's a little gap, and then the next thought comes along. And if we can learn to spot those gaps, inside of each little gap is silence, and higher consciousness is inside that gap of silence. Now, here's a little trick that I use, and this is going to seem really so elementary, but I'll sit down in a quiet place to practice finding this gap. And I'll look for my first thought, and maybe I'll think, oh, it's pretty outside. I'd like to go for a walk. And then I look for the gap that would be right after that thought and identify that gap before I allow the next thought to come in. And this is totally weird, but as I look for the gap, my thoughts somehow freeze. Somehow, in doing this practice, it actually calls in the gap. And right there in that gap, that's where I'm able to find higher consciousness. In the gap, I have a connection to infinite intelligence. All right. These gaps can also make us smile as we begin to see how crazy our thoughts can be. And so, the more time we can spend inside those gaps, the more opportunity we have to correct the thoughts that no longer serve us and choose the more positive frequency thoughts instead. For instance, if I find myself spinning out because some off the wall situation that might happen in my day, all I do is center myself and then take a step back so that my thoughts are out there in front of me where I can witness and observe them, and then I can change them. And then it becomes much easier to maybe recite a mantra a few times and then a few more times until those thoughts of doom and disaster have lost all their steam. This practice helps me access a higher stream of consciousness, those higher frequency thoughts. And I'm so much happier in that place where I can now create a better than expected outcome rather than trying to fix anything that has shown up in front of me. You know, I grew up in a family of musicians, and I remember my grandmother, who would play her Steinway concert grand piano without being able to read a note, would tell me the magic of music lies in between the notes. And she would sometimes call this a pregnant pause. It allows the music or the poetry to breathe. This is the gap. This is the blank space, the space in between the notes or in between our thoughts. There's magic in that blank space. When we can experience this blank space or the gap, we can become more present. And in this gap, we can find that higher stream of consciousness. Okay, here comes the last insight on how to unlock our higher consciousness. Let me put this on the screen for you. And this one, I got to say, it's probably my favorite. Insight number 4, the gap is a portal to the unmanifested. Hmm. The gap is a portal to the unmanifested because the gap is where we can unlock higher consciousness and tap into infinite intelligence. We can consider the gap as a portal to the things we'd like to manifest. The gap is where we find our inner stillness and quiet. Yet at the same time, it can be an insanely alive state because it's free of time, it's free of obstacles, it's free of thinking, it's free of the ego self that wants to drain all of our vital energy. It's still and it's quiet, and yet the gap is also very alive. And this is why the gap is so important because when we stay in the now reality, trying to think our way through our obstacles, well, our ego thinking can never find a solution. Our ego doesn't want us to find a solution because our ego is itself an inherently essential part of the obstacle or challenge that we're in. The ego itself is essential to our challenge. And as long as we stay in our ego thinking, as long as we keep trying to fix the now physical reality, we aren't in the gap and we aren't able to unlock a higher consciousness that wants to help us create a beautiful new reality. We aren't able to use our positive energies to access that pool of possibilities, or what some people call vibrational escrow, because we're trapped in this now physical reality. We want to find the portal to the unmanifested, and the gap is where we find that portal. The gap is the portal to what's ready to be manifested. That's my favorite one. All right. So the question was, how do we unlock this higher consciousness, this infinite intelligence? Overcoming our ego is at the bottom of that question, and it's also the answer to the question. When we realize that our ego is a bottomless pit of dissatisfaction, it makes it easier to reach higher, to reach for better thoughts, because those better thoughts help to quieten the mind so that we can go beyond the mind. And this is where we can find an empowering meaning for our life because we are most definitely ready to change the course of our journey and begin to manifest a brand new reality. As we empower ourselves towards self expression and who we are at our core without the negative thoughts and emotions that can distract and drain us, we're choosing a higher frequency, higher and better thoughts, because our choice of frequency, our choice of more positive emotions changes the course of our journey. So, reflecting back on everything we covered today, how can you apply what you've learned? I thought this was a really fun topic on how to break faith in the now physical reality and shift our faith to the unseen world, to the unmanifested, and put our faith in that world. We're leaving behind ego thinking and moving toward a higher consciousness. Higher consciousness is in that gap, and the gap is a portal to this unseen and ready to be manifested world. All right. I hope this helps you as you're using the powers of alchemy to transform challenges and obstacles into positive new successes. This podcast is all about helping you have success on your spiritual growth journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. But if you still can't get your head around what's got you stuck in life or in business, you can tell me about it. You can send me a question to questions at unlockyourhiddenpower.com, or you may not know that you can get a free copy of my latest book at unlockyourhiddenpower.com. You'll discover the 22 undeniable laws of alchemy and how to take a wrecking ball to doubt, worries, frustration, and indecision so that your challenges evaporate right before your eyes. You can get your instant download at unlockyourhiddenpower.com. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I'm wishing you a life filled with all the alchemy you need to bring success to you. Feel free to share this video with anyone you know who's feeling stuck, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.